The Under-19 World Cup group stage is over and Sri Lanka are through to the Super Six. This is Sri Lanka 99.94. My name is Mark Machado from Muraliend, and I'm joined, as always, by Estelle Devon from the Ep.48. Estelle, we're talking about the Under-19 World Cup that's currently ongoing for the girls in South Africa. It's been a bit of a mixed bag of results, but they completed this assignment. They've got themselves through to the next stage. They won their first game against the USA. They lost narrowly against Bangladesh in the second game. And they had, let's be honest, it was quite a big gulf between the two teams, and lost the third game against Australia quite by a large margin. What's been your takeaway from the tournament and the girls' performances so far?
Yeah, to be honest, I think Sri Lanka can be satisfied with how they've gone. I know the defeat against Australia was, it was pretty comprehensive. But just going through the two games, USA, of course, Sri Lanka were expected to beat. Bangladesh, in general, you would expect them to beat them as well. But Bangladesh have been kind of the story of the tournament so far, beating Australia in their opening game, and they were superb with the bat. I think just that game, of course, I have to say the first two games were not streamed in Sri Lanka, so we weren't able to watch the games live. We have to go off the kind of the highlights of the games, and just going through the highlights, I felt like they gave a good fight, and I was impressed by the batting in particular because if you look at the kind of the games Sri Lanka under-19s have played over the last couple of months, they've kind of been in the range of scoring just 90 to 120, right? But once they were given that kind of target at 160, they really showed what they're capable of. And I think that's if that's what the future is going to look like for Sri Lanka, I think they can take it, because you don't see much of that at the senior level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, kind of park that Australia game aside, and we've got to talk about the kind of gulf between the two sides in terms of resources that they have. I mean, when this squad was picked, my first question is where have these girls actually come from? Where if you look at the Australian team, you can see the pathways in terms of getting into the national side through state selection, and it's very similar to the way the boys would get into the under-19 boys side in Australia. When in Sri Lanka, I'm not saying it isn't, but it's just not as transparent. And we know we've talked extensively about how girls' red ball cricket in schools isn't nearly anywhere near as developed as it is for the boys. So when you look at the Australian result, you've got to look at the resources. You look at the other fixtures though. There's been some good performances in there, right? As you mentioned, Vishmi with the bat has been pretty reasonably consistent. I think what she scored 61 from 54 and almost got us over the line against Bangladesh, right? So I think there's a lot of positives, and they've just got to, they're through to the next stage. It is going to be a bit more difficult, but they've got to try and hopefully grow into the tournament and see what they can do. That they've got opportunity when you go away in these tournaments, when you go on these tours, is for the period that you're there. You live as a professional cricketer, right? You're not worried about your A levels, or maybe they are, but they're not having to go to class, or they're not having to deal with their day jobs or whatever it is they do. Normally, they can just focus on cricket, and presumably you'd hope and wish that the longer they're there, the more they'll improve as players, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just the ICC has got a mentorship program going, so they've got kind of players who have played international cricket at the highest level, coming and speaking to them. They've got a coach who has played it at the highest level, who's been one of the top performers Sri Lanka has ever produced. So it's I think a great opportunity and a great experience for all those kids. And I say kids because you talking about A levels, I think there's like one or two 19-year-olds in there. Everyone else is 16, 17, 18. So, massive opportunity for them to go up against some of the better teams, teams that obviously have a better structure. I think I was just talking about the tournament with my mom actually yesterday, talking about how many 15-year-olds are in that side. Just to me, it kind of shows you what happens when you put somebody who cares about the game, who cares about women's cricket in charge. So Shashikala initially was brought in, I think, as kind of to manage under 19 cricket for SLC. Um, and I feel like when you're picking 15-year-olds, you're maybe having one eye on the next tournament, which will hopefully be in 2 years if the ICC follow the same pattern as they do with the men's side of things. So, I mean, I think it really kind of signifies, or it shows the value of picking somebody who's not just there to kind of have this on their CV, right? That they've coached an under 19 national side, but someone who actually cares about what happens in the long run. So I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm really disappointed. Like I mentioned in the preview episode, I was looking forward to it being streamed live because at least a part of Sri Lanka would be able to view it online. Unfortunately, the first two games weren't on ICC TV. So at least the highlights are out there. I hope that a lot of schools coaches, a lot of people who are handling younger girls who are interested in playing cricket are getting them into watching not only Sri Lanka's games but some of the other games. I mean, you've got people like Shafali Verma turning up for India, has played in World Cup finals, right? So I mean, the only way you should see it is a way to learn. So yeah, massive opportunity for all the girls involved.
I know you're not into cricket rights, but I know this is something me and you've talked about a lot. Do we know why? Is there been any explanation why these games weren't available to view in Sri Lanka? Because you could definitely see them abroad, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason was because I mean, in all the pre-game stuff or the pre-tournament stuff, we were told that, or not we were told, it was advertised that at least the group stage games will be on ICC TV in Sri Lanka, and then semi-finals onwards, I think it will be on Star. So, we were expecting it to be available. Unfortunately, like I said, the first two games weren't. The Australia game was, and it turned out that was where they were the worst. I mean, I think anyone who would have watched the Bangladesh game would have been really encouraged because I felt like they batted really well. I mean, we're used to seeing Sri Lanka fold when chasing totals like that. Or, I mean, if you're talking about the senior team, depend on Athapattu getting runs if they're to get close to that total. And I think, yes, Vishmi Gunaratne got runs in that game, but it was also Devmi Vihanga who was really playing the attacking role there. Vishmi's role was more of to kind of bat through the innings, whereas Devmi was going after the bowlers and getting those boundaries, whatever loose deliveries that she got, she was putting away. So, I mean, that's what's encouraging about the team, right? And I know you have a different theory about why the Australia game was on, but I don't know. I mean, it's possible, right?
My theory was just like, with Australia, of course that game was going to be available for everyone around the world to view because Australia were playing. It was totally insignificant that Sri Lanka were involved. I don't say that with any joy. I've been brought up to have a serious dislike of Australian cricket, right? But I say that I've just recently been in Australia. I've had a great time at the MCG and at the Marvel Stadium, and I know you had a great time in Australia as well. And we've talked not on this show, but on other shows previously, how you do have a soft spot for Australian cricket. So maybe my view isn't one that's held universally by Sri Lanka fans, and that's okay. That's all right. You're allowed to support who you want. I want to get a bit more into the performances and also look ahead to what's coming up. Let's take a quick break before that, though.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
That's right. We definitely do speak cricket. There's loads of cricket going on in the world right now as well. And we've got Women's World Cup with the full senior side starting in South Africa as well in only a few weeks. So 99.94 is an essential follow. And get that app. Download that app. Also, while you're at it, leave us a comment. Tell us what you're thinking. What do you think about Sri Lanka cricket? Don't want to just share your thoughts on the under-19s team in South Africa. We hear it. Talk to us about any aspect of Sri Lankan cricket. We want to. I want to hear from you, and we've got a new Twitter account as well, haven't we? Can you remember what the Twitter account handle is, Estelle? I said yesterday that I'd look it up, and I can't find it.
Let me check.
I did. I can't remember it. Sorry.
It's SL on 99. No, it's SL on 9994 DM. Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Lovely. And we need more followers. So hit that follow button if you've got a Twitter account. Estelle, we beat back to the under-19 World Cup. We beat USA in the first game. I saw a tweet or a comment somewhere, I can't remember where I saw it, saying that it wasn't a given that Sri Lanka were going to beat the USA. We know the USA have invested a lot of money into cricket in recent years. We know coming into this tournament, they quite fancied the chances. You know, they thought that this under-19 side could go to South Africa and they weren't expected to win it, but they were expected to kind of lay a mark down. It didn't quite happen for them. I look at the group, and we talked about this in our preview, and we said, you know, women's cricket is going off and developing in a totally different way to the way the men's game is. We can't be expected to turn up at a tournament and say, right, we're going to beat the traditional non-cricketing side. But I thought that USA team is probably it's a decent cricket side. I thought it was a good performance, and I think the girls can take a lot from winning that game, right?
Yeah, and I mean, at this level, how many games have they played, right? So every win that they get under their belts, I think, is a confidence booster. It's not like when you're playing for, you know, the senior national team where you're playing consistently. Here, you don't know what you're coming up against. Like you said, I mean, it's not a given that Sri Lanka would come in and beat USA or even Bangladesh. Although I think in nearly every preview I saw, even in my mind, Sri Lanka did, or I held them at a higher level than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh was fantastic in that game, and I mean, in fact, all throughout the group stage, they've been incredible. So every win, I think, gives them confidence. I think that one in particular, they've kind of already shown a reluctance to set a target. So I guess that would give you an indication on what skill they kind of bank on. They think probably that they're a better batting side than a bowling side. So far, that's looked like fact. They didn't bowl that well against Bangladesh or Australia. But yeah, any win should be taken in a positive way, whether it's the USA or, I mean, you saw Rwanda beating Zimbabwe in the tournament, right? So, I mean, all this at the age group level, it's all about confidence and taking that momentum into the next game.
In that Bangladesh game, there's two things that need to be said. As Bangladesh come into it, they'd recently beaten India as well, right? So This is a much fancied side. This is almost, you know, people who follow Bangladeshi cricket are talking about this as a kind of a potential golden generation of young girls that they've got coming through. And you mentioned the bowling. We lost wickets early as well. If we hadn't done that, we might have, you know, we only fell short. Was it 10 runs, I think, in the end?
10 runs,
we might have, you know, that's a very small variable. I mean, the Australia game, I think at this stage, you just got to draw a line underneath it and go, not much. Right. Yeah, not our day, not much went right. You know, we're struggling to get wickets, whatever. It's fine. You know, me and you always say, you just got to get to the next bit, right? Got to get to the next round. And that's where we're at. Shall we take another break and talk about what might happen now that it's through to this stage?
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary.
Oh, sorry, that was my fault. I cut that early. All that lovely voice is going to tell you was that you need to download the 99.94 app. What they've done, I wasn't going to tell anyone, but I've messed up, so I'm going to have to tell you now, is they've given me full control of running this. And Muku, who's the boss around here, is going to absolutely blow my head off the minute this comes to an end.
If you didn't say it, I was going to say it. So
yeah, I apologise to Muku. I apologise to Jared Kimber and everyone else associated with 99.94 for bringing this to disrespect. If this was the actual Sri Lankan cricket team, I would do the right thing. I would hand my kit back and walk off into the jungle, never to be seen ever again. Or maybe just go and play grade cricket in Melbourne or something, grade podcasting in Melbourne. Estelle, we're through to the Super Sixes. Firstly, this is an achievement, right? We should be proud of them for what they've done so far.
yeah, like I said before, right? I think even the loss against Bangladesh there's a lot of positives to take out of that game. Australia, like you said, you just have to kind of move on from it. So they've done well to get through to the Super Sixers. It's going to be tough to make it to the semi-finals, and I don't think going into this tournament Sri Lanka was expecting to go all the way, but they would definitely have expected to be competitive, so that's what they'll want to do. I believe they'll be playing India and South Africa in the next round, so it's not going to be easy. India definitely one of the the favorites to go all the way in this tournament. South Africa the hosts, so it's not going to be easy, but I think they can be proud of their efforts. They don't have a system or as robust a system as you would see in some of the other countries, but they have spent a bit of time together as a group, and hopefully there will be a few more fixtures. That's for me, it's considering how the senior teams gotten fixtures over the last couple of years, I'm being very optimistic, but hopefully at least the Asian Cricket Council can put together a few fixtures for the under 19s, get them playing a little bit more often, so that going into tournaments there won't be as much mystery around who can do what, but players will be able to establish themselves to a degree before they go into international tournaments.
There's lots of these girls to play for, right? Obviously, the greater glory of getting shrunk to a semi-final, but beyond that, there's no reason why. A couple of our girls have really got full senior caps. There's no reason why if some of the other girls put really good performances in, that they could get selected for the senior side as well. We know that there's a women's T10 tournament starting in SL at some point, or at least we're hoping there will be. They've announced that there will be. And, in years, they've announced the women's IPL, or I can't remember what they're calling it. It's not called the women's IPL. And there's more women's franchise cricket being played around the world. Look at the men's team, and you look at, Patarana and Trevor and Matthews both effectively got franchise contracts and are playing franchise cricket, and they started their journey into professional cricket by performances at the Under-19 World Cup, as did Walala game, right? There's no reason. You see, I managed to slip a mention of him even into this show. There's no reason why, some of the other girls can't emulate that. Some of the girls in the Sri Lanka Under-19 squad can't emulate that, and in a few years' time be aiming to be making a decent living playing international, or playing their trade around the world in all these other leagues. And I really hope, as a Sri Lanka fan, that is something that we end up seeing in the not too distant future, right?
Yeah, I don't think players like Vihanga are that far away from a call-up. Just watching how they've gone in the tournament so far, I think someone like Manudina Anayakkara and Vihanga have kind of something that the national team is lacking in terms of being able to score quickly, get that, like, be really, you don't see that much of a flowing type of play from the senior team, right? Uh, but these girls seem to kind of have that, and I think that should be encouraged. I really hope that between now and getting into the national team, that's not kind of, stamped down. And because Sri Lankans, or at least from what I've seen, have a tendency to focus a lot on technique, which is great, but also maybe not at the expense of getting rid of a player's natural flair. So I really hope that it the transition from here to, I mean, I think both of them are, I think Manudinanakar is 15, uh, Vihanga is 17. So there could be a couple of years, but I hope it happens sooner rather than later, because they can then continue that growth, and be real assets for the national team. Of course, Vishmi is already in the setup. I think she still has a few things to work on, but I mean, it's a mindset thing as well, right? When you watch Sri Lanka play, you feel like they are looking at 120. They're not looking beyond that. So yeah, I'm really excited to see. I hope it happens, like I said, sooner rather than later.
I don't think we should mention their ages anymore, because all I can envisage is them seeing this and going, "Oh, look, that auntie and uncle are talking about us again." Which I don't need that kind of energy in my life, even though.
But isn't it funny? I found it like really amazing to see like 3 15-year-olds in that side.
It's great. It's absolutely brilliant. It bodes really well for Sri Lanka cricket, but reminds me that I am aging is one of the downfalls of having to talk about 15-year-olds getting picked for these tournaments and these games. It's sad for me and for anyone else who's older and listening. I just don't want them thinking about me as an uncle. That's all I want. I'm just their
But in Sri
fun
Lanka,
cousin.
I mean, at least the rule we go by is if you don't have kids, you're not an uncle or auntie. So,
Oh, really? I just call everyone who might be older than me
I mean,
uncle or auntie.
people are age mark, not like a 60-year-old person.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. Like, fine. Yeah, I do enjoy, like, one of the great pleasures of my life is calling people who are clearly not old enough to be my uncle. Like, when I say old enough, like, uncles could be any age, right? Actually. But there you go. Anyway, we're digressing. Right. I think we'll leave it there, Estelle. We will obviously be back and we'll check in on how they're getting on, either during or after the Super Sixes. Good luck to all the girls playing. And hopefully, I think all we really want is to see some wins and to actually be able to watch the game on ICC TV. My name's been Mark Bichado. You can follow me at Mark Bichado on Twitter. Estelle, you can also follow on Twitter at Estelle_Vasu1, as in the number one. You can also follow 99.94 across all social media platforms at 9994DM. We've been Sri Lanka on 99.94, and we will be back very soon. Thanks for listening.